Chapter 6, My Darling Daughters. We raced to the mailbox, although it wasn't much of a contest. I came in first, long-legged as I am, and Vanetta second. She kangaroo hopped and waved her fists above her head, like she had won a prize fight. Vanetta and I waited for Fern, who held the postcard. I'd put it in her hand for that reason. We couldn't do a thing without that postcard. All this would soothe Fern's wounded feelings from always coming in dead last. She panted hard when she reached us. "Let me put it in," Vanetta said. "No," Fern said, between gulps of air. "I'm the mail carrier, so I get to put it in the mailbox. But I beat you to the mailbox." I swiped the postcard clean from Fern's hand and gave it to Vanetta. Fern balled her fist and socked me, and I said ow just to say ow. Vanetta dropped the postcard in the mailbox and then hopped and danced until Fern yelled, "Quit it!" I'm usually good at staying one step ahead of a major squabble, but my sisters seemed to have gotten better at keeping things stirred up between them. We started back to our house in time to see Pa shuffling down the steps, and Papa's no shuffler. Vanetta and Fern ran to him like nipping puppies. I lagged behind. "Where you going, Pa?" "Yeah, Papa. Where?" Pa gave both a pat on the head and said, "Out." "Out where?" Fern asked. Only Fern could get away with tugging on Pa like that, although I also wanted to know. We had been gone from him for so long. Why was he leaving us? This was the part where Pa was supposed to scold Fern for getting into grown folks' business. Instead, he let out a sigh and said, "Sit down, girls. Sit here on the stoop." We sat. Each of us folded our hands in our laps, eager for whatever he was going to tell us. It was a treat to see our father on a weekday with the sun still shining. Even though we all lived under the same roof, we treasured every minute spent with Papa. "My darling daughters," he began, as if he were running for president. But that's all he said. I was used to my father's quiet ways. He was as quiet as Vanetta was chatty. When he needed to say something, he'd pour it out as warm as tap water. He sometimes spoke in stories when I sat with him late in the night and he ate his supper. I loved my times with Papa more than I loved the stories he told. Truth be told, Uncle Darnell was the real storyteller. Only a few seconds had passed, but waiting for him to speak was hard on me. There was something about this new Papa, something I couldn't figure out about this father who out of nowhere whistled a tune other than Old Man River. I could smell his shaving cream and whatever else he wore, woodsy, like he had put more of it on. His voice cracked, but before he could pour out any words, Big Ma, who had been fanning herself before the open window, called out, "Your Pa is keeping company with a woman in Brownsville." Pa closed his eyes. Ma, nothing," she said. Fern looked at me and I said, "Pa has a lady friend." As hard and odd as it was to say those words. Vanetta had no trouble with this whole idea. "Pa's got a girlfriend?" Fern sang along. "Pa's got a girlfriend. Is that why you're whistling the Temptations?" I asked. "And wearing perfume?" Fern asked. "That's men's cologne," Pa corrected her right away. "I'll bet she wears perfume," Vanessa sang. "And lipstick," Fern sang with her. And then the two of them made kissing smacks. Mwah! All right, Pa said. "That's enough of that." Pa realized I hadn't spoken up. He beamed at me, waiting. I looked at the ground. "Her name is Marva Hendricks, and I'd like you all to meet her." When I glanced up, I saw dimples. My father had dimples like Uncle Darnell's. I'd never noticed them before. I looked back down. Fern said right away, "Marva rhymes with larva." Then Vanetta couldn't let it be and added, "and George Washington Carver." And while they argued if Carver rhymed with larva, I saw pictures of my Temptations, whistling, dimpled, smiling father sitting in the RKO movie theater, munching on popcorn with his arm around Miss Marva Hendricks' shoulders. This wasn't the kind of picture you're supposed to have of your father while your sisters made kissing smacks. My papa was 32 and acting like a teenager. Hippies were right. You can't trust anyone over 30. Big Ma's dinner should have tasted like the meal of a lifetime. How could it when there were 2 empty places at dinner? Pa was out keeping company with Miss Marva Hendricks from Brownsville, and Uncle Darnell was carrying a rifle in the jungles of Vietnam. My sisters didn't have any problem lifting their forks. They ate and entertained Big Ma and told more than we'd agreed on about our time with Cecile. Thank goodness Big Ma was in a talking mood instead of a whipping mood. Nothing but a piss pot of boiling trouble, Big Ma said. I told him not to send you. I told him. Only when she started in on Cecile did my sisters feel bad for telling her all that they told. My son, Big Ma said. He can pick 'em, I'll say that. My appetite never did catch up to me, although my sisters' spoons dived happily into their Nana pudding. I got up and I took a few dishes into the kitchen to wash. My Timex was waterproof, but I laid it on the counter while Vanetta and Fern fought over my untouched dessert. Chapter 7, P.S. the 11. It took 1 week and 1 day before we had heard from Cecile. Leave it to our mother to make her own postcard, as grand and sturdy as a birthday card. Big Ma got it first, along with the rest of the mail. I stopped dusting when she hollered, "What in the world?" I was all eyes and ears. My heart was skipping rope. Cecile's movable type letters were bold enough to be seen from down the hall. I sped into the living room where Big Ma sat going through the mail. "Is that for us?" I asked. She was reading it, Cecile's card. I couldn't tell if she had scrunched up her face from reading what Cecile had written or turning up her nose at Cecile's movable type letters in red, black, and green. She read the card and said, Instead of handing it to me, Big Ma dropped the postcard on the table like it was nothing. "Come get it if you want." "You think I'd be angry that Big Ma violated our right to privacy and read our postcard? All the rights my sister and I had been filled with only existed at the People's Center and out of the mouths of the Black Panthers. We were back on Herkimer Street under Big Ma, and we had to keep most of what we learned in Oakland to ourselves." I yelled, "Vanetta, Fern!" They raced into the living room. Guess what came? I held up the postcard so they could see the lettering. They shouted, "Cecile!" and a lot of, "Let me see." I handed the card over to Vanetta, who did the honors and read the poem out loud in her poetry reciting voice. While Vanetta recited, Fern did the dance that told of the summer leaves falling into color, falling away, and then breaking through spring branches. Fern twirled to the part about the leaves always coming back, but in different shades. Then she went spring leafy crazy on the bud breaking through the branches part, and Vanetta had to join her. Big Ma called it beatnik nonsense. Vanetta cleared her throat to make it deeper and read the letter part in Cecile's voice. "Dear Delphine, Vanetta, and Fern." She said Fern, Fern squealed. "Little girl." Vanetta kept it up with her Cecile voice. "I am blowing dust off your mind. Do not interrupt the great Nazilla." She cleared her throat and went on. "It was all a funny joke to us that Big Ma didn't get, but for a moment my grandmother not liking my mother hurt like a dull toothache. I'm glad you're all safe. Everyone here says hello. Write back if you want to. Your mother, Cecile." "I'm going to write," I said. "Me too," Fern said. "Okay, me too," Vanetta said in her own voice. "If you're writing, I'm writing." Vanetta and Fern fussed over the card until they almost tore it, so I took it away. "Everyone in Oakland says hello," I said. "At least they haven't forgotten us." Vanetta fluttered her eyelashes and said, "You mean, at least Hirohito hasn't forgotten you." Hirohito, Big Ma asked. "What's a Hirohito?" "Delphine's boyfriend," Vanetta said. "Only 10 and starting this mess already," Big Ma said. Mercy." He's not my boyfriend," I said, but he was the closest person to a boyfriend I'd ever had, besides my father and Uncle D. "And I'm 11. 10, 11, same difference," Big Ma said. "And what kind of ooga-mooga name is Hirohito?" "It's not a ooga-mooga, Big Ma," Fern said, which we all knew was Big Ma's way of saying African. But she also called Vanetta and Delphine Ooga Mooga names because they came from Cecile's imagination, when only Fern's name, Afua, was a true Ooga Mooga name. I guess that's why Afua was not on Fern's birth certificate or school papers. Big Ma had no use for anything African. Pop probably felt the same way. It's Japanese, Vanetta said, and his name is Black. Hirohito Woods. Woods is not a black last name, I said. Charlene Woods in my class is black. Her brother Delroy Woods is black. I probably had a Cecile look on my face for the times we said that things that completely confounded her. I didn't even know where to begin with Vanetta's thinking. Fern explained Hirohito to Big Ma. He's Japanesey looking and black. Big Ma gave another war baby. Both what she said and how she said it might as well have been street talk that Big Ma and Papa didn't allow in this house. But how do you correct someone you brought into the world and helped strap to you? His mother is Japanese and his father is black, I explained. And in jail, Vanetta volunteered. I glared at her. Jail? Big Ma was horrified. That Hirohito's father's in jail? A mercy, a mercy. Should have never let you all board that plane. He's a political prisoner, I said, unjustly incarcerated by the man. Now, I was speaking like Crazy Kelvin. Crazy Kelvin, the strongest speaking Black Panther my sisters and I had met at the People's Center, who was also shown to be a phony, an infiltrator, just a plain traitor. You can't tell me nothing about that war baby's father. He's about criminal. Just like the rest of them, nothing but a band of criminals leading good Negroes astray. Fern had only heard war baby, and she thought that was a good thing. War baby, she said. Uncle Darnell's in a war, Vanetta said. I'll bet he has a war baby. Ooh, Fern cried. I get to dress her. It could be a boy, Vanetta said. We'll take turns. Will y'all stop this nonsense, Big Ma said. Uncle Darnell ain't bringing no war babies home from Vietnam. Shuck corn, Vanetta said. Yeah, shucks. I asked Big Ma for $2 to buy a first-class envelopes, a memo pad, and postage stamps, so we could write a proper letter to our mother. And to my pen pal, Hirohito, but I kept that part to myself. My sisters walked with me in the candy store around the corner on Fulton. They were more interested in the leftover change for Jolly Rancher candy than in stationery and stamps. When we returned home, I gave them 2 pieces of candy and I began my letters. Dear Hirohito, how are you? I am fine. I didn't know what else to write or where to send his letter. We said we could write each other, but I didn't give him my address in Brooklyn and I forgot to get his address in Oakland. I did know what to say to my mother and where to send her letter. Dear Cecile, how are you? I'm fine. I had to write this letter now because I need to know something and you don't have a telephone. Did you love my father? Did he love you? Do you miss my father like he missed you? I'm asking because Pa has a lady friend who lives in Brownsville. He told us her name and he takes her out on dates like a teenager when he is our father. If you still have feelings for our father, he might forget all about this lady in Brownsville. Vanetta, Fern, and I really liked your postcard. Yours truly, Delphine. P.S. Please say hello to everyone for me. I received Cecile's letter by airmail 9 days later. Dear Delphine, the green stucco house is mine, bought, and paid for. Mine to stucco and paint, mine to live in. The sofa I sleep on, the books stacked on the floor are mine. Not all the clothes are rightfully mine, but I feel I have a right to them. Like I've paid for them, although I didn't lay a cent to wear them. They are still paid for. They are mine and no one else's. They have conformed to me and can't be worn by anyone but me. The palm tree in my yard is mine. Someone got tired of it or grew disappointed with it and threw it out. I brought it home, dug a hole on the side of my house, and planted it where it would get sun. The palm tree tries to stand up because someone wants it. It knows it is wanted. It knows it is mine. The printer is mine. It was left out for scrap. It was heavy and in pieces. But I lifted it, got it on the bus, worked on it until I got the rollers to turn and the gears to turn. No one carried it and fixed it but me. It is mine. My feelings about your father are mine. They are not feelings that can be understood by a young girl. They are my feelings. Mine. Don't worry about these things. Study hard. Have your own things. Your mother, Cecile. P.S. B11.